Stay here.
Dad.
Just stay here. Keep calling.
Look, I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't want to give you an excuse.
Guys, welcome back to Who Let Us Out. Now, tonight, Daredevil Born Again finally premiered on Disney+. I had the privilege of seeing the entire season a few weeks back, and I have been holding my reaction in because it was really hard to keep those episode spoilers within me without telling the world or having somebody to talk about it other than press, because we did do the junket and that was probably the only time I could have really spoken about it without revealing too much in the interviews. Now, episode 1 and 2 dropped tonight. Most people will probably have watched it already, or some people are still waiting to see it while they get home from work. So before you watch the rest of this video, there's going to be some spoilers from those episodes, but not necessarily the other episodes that I've seen, but I will be dropping hints as to what is going on. Now, first of all, episodes 1 and 2, I feel like, you know, some people say you don't need to watch Daredevil seasons 1 to 3, The Punisher, Defenders, She-Hulk, before you get into this. But I highly suggest you do, because if I even had to re-binge the first 3 seasons recently because it had been so long to kind of like recap on certain things. Now, I didn't rewatch The Punisher, I didn't rewatch Defenders or She-Hulk because I honestly ran out of time between the junket and I wanted to squeeze in as much as 1 to 3 before I got Born Again. Get it? Born Again? Now, immediately going into this, you know, as I was speaking to the creative team about this, you're going to have high expectations from what you saw from the Netflix show, and you're going to want it to be violent, gritty, 80s, 90s action style, sticking to the storyline. You know, our favorite 3, Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige, which, you know, initially they bring them back, but I'm really happy to say that the series does stick to that. Directors Aaron and Justin explained to me that even in the previous seasons, the cinematography and the style was different for each season. While they took some ideas from those seasons, they did switch them around, particularly when it comes to showing how they filmed Fisk and Matt.
Oh, that's a really good question. You know, I can actually tell you, I think that that we developed a very strict camera language that is different from the other show, in which Matt's world is defined by being warm and immediate, which is like basically handheld and wide lenses that are close to your face. And it makes you feel like you're just standing there right there with them, you know, maybe even a slightly documentary feel, that kind of thing. Whereas Fisk's world is extremely controlled and locked down. Nothing moves. The camera tries not to move as much as it can. If it does, it just pushes in kind of obsessively and slowly, and it's more institutional, like a statue, and it, you know, brings ideas of power and monoliths and all of that. So I'd say, by the way, that's all inspired by all of the cool stuff they did in the other seasons. But that would be one thing that we definitely brought to it in a specific way.
Also, the interesting thing of, I feel like the lighting in season 1 is a lot different than the lighting in season 2 and 3 of Daredevil. So there's already a tradition of sort of taking a different approach to lighting specifically, and almost always a bold approach. And I think that what Hilary Spera, our director of photography, did on this is, while it is very different than the lighting in the Netflix shows, but it's in the tradition of the lighting evolving over the seasons and doing something bold.
So episode 1 of Born Again, you think we're all happy. We see Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige. We see their law firm sign, and we're like, okay, you know, the gang is back together again. They're at Josie's, their old stomping grounds, which, by the way, in this season, they actually use a different location, which I did visit. And then the inevitable happens. You know, a lot of people have been talking about this. Who dies? Is it Karen? You know, is it Foggy? Is it Maggie? Is it Matt's new love interest? Right in the beginning, they hit us in the heart and they kill Foggy because, you know, Bullseye comes back. And later down in the season, we actually find out why Bullseye targeted Foggy. And I don't want to get into that, but oh my God, like, I'm not going to lie. I actually watched the last episode today while everybody's watching 1 and 2 because my screeners do expire. And finding out why Foggy was killed and who is the reasoning behind it is driving me crazy. And I just need the next season now because this is way too much. And I know there have been a lot of rumors about Foggy potentially coming back because, you know, both his character and Karen's have been confirmed to come back for the next season. And there's theories that maybe Foggy didn't die. Maybe he's been in like protective custody this whole time. Who knows? I'm not going to tell you if I see that in this season or not, but where I am right now, I'm still left confused about his death and I'm still kind of hurt. But I mean, that's gritty. That's what the show is. You know, the turmoil. It's going to cause havoc in Matt's mind because that's why he threw Bullseye off the roof, because he technically broke his no-kill room, but Bullseye survived. And I know he deals with that throughout the season because he went that far, and it's a lot.
Well, we explore that idea early on. It's, you know, but for the grace of God, he has not crossed that line, you know. And that's I think that's going to be hard to reconcile with for someone like Matt, that he hasn't crossed that line, but not through his own actions, really, by the grace of God. What's interesting about a character like Matt is you could take that information, you can go two ways with it. You could descend down a path of shame and guilt and remorse that you can't come out of, or you could see that as your loving God looking over you and guiding you and you know, grace, basically. And I think Matt will probably oscillate between the two. There's in this new season, there's a bunch of stuff that happens early on, and it's going to define who he is.
Now, I do want to add that this is clearly a continuation of the previous series. You know, it's following up on a lot of things that happened in the past, and what's really important this time around is that even if there's characters who are not directly here from those previous seasons, there's a presence for them. For example, we get a new character who I'm absolutely obsessed with. She's also a fellow journalist. Her name is Bibi Urich, Ben Urich's niece. And in the beginning, when we're introed to her, I questioned some of her actions because she does obviously get close to Fisk and she wants to get in with Fisk, and she does that through Daniel, who works with Fisk. And I'm kind of like, you know, this man murdered your uncle, you know, way ago. So I did question like her, you know, what was her purpose in doing that, but you do find that out later. But I really like her character because I was really upset when Ben was killed. Like, it was like one of like the hardest parts of the previous seasons, and just seeing like a piece of him back like gives me a peace of mind. But it also reminds me of how horrible Fisk is. In this season, he really is the mayor, and it's very reflective of the world we live in today. And when you go later into the season, you'll understand why I'm saying that, because some of the things that he does as mayor really reflect what we're going through today. But I'll put a stop to there. But it's episode 8 and 9 where things get crazy, and that's all I can say. Unless you really want these spoilers, I'm allowed to talk about the show now, but I just don't want to necessarily spoil it for you. But all I can say is it does get pretty gross. And going back to that, Fisk, I feel like, really wants to be mayor, but he's always going to be Kingpin. I think it's the police chief who says something like, once a thug, always a thug. And he's always going to be Kingpin, no matter what he wants to do. Like, he's going to be Kingpin. And I feel like in this season, he does try to divert from that, but you'll see the outcome in the end. Speaking of Fisk, Vanessa Fisk, you see in the first 2 episodes that, you know, Fisk was missing, he came back, she kind of grabbed the handles and she took over the business, and it was her who handled everything while he was gone. And I feel like in the beginning, she doesn't know if she wants him back necessarily because she's been handling business and now he's in the way, in a way. But they do kind of go through these ups and downs, and then their relationship comes to a turning point that kind of blows up. I won't get into how, because you want to see it. But that's actually a pivotal moment because Vanessa is a huge part of certain events. And I feel like her role this time around is a lot bigger than it has been previously. Explored in the first 2 episodes, I call them the Punisher fanboys, because we see that they have the tattoo. I think it's the end of the 2nd episode. At first I was confused because I was like, why are they wearing the Punisher tattoo? Like, what is going on? But this kind of makes sense later down the line. You know, these cops are not good cops, clearly. They are also not connected to the Punisher in the way that you think they are. And when we do get introduced to the Punisher, we don't get lots and lots of him, but it's two separate. We get like, I know the trailer I think leaked, where he's kind of talking to Matt and he's kind of being his voice of reason, like where he's just kind of grappling with Foggy's death and whether he should kill or not kill people. We see him in that, and we see that version of the Punisher, but then we get another version too, which all I can say is it's the Punisher that you know and love. I won't get into like in what lights we see him, but there's multiple narratives here. So he's not just used in one, if that makes sense. But he definitely is not a fan of Fisk, as we know. But those fanboys, they do end up working for Fisk. As you can see in the first 2 episodes, they are corrupt cops. And as you can see with the Hector Ayala case, they have their hand in a lot of messy things. Speaking of the White Tiger, played by the late Camaro de los Reyes, which makes his story even more tragic. We get introduced to him, I believe, in the 2nd episode. He saves a man on the subway from getting beaten up by the corrupt police, and then he has to go to court, and Matt is his lawyer. You know, we find out that he's the White Tiger. His story is also very important in the trajectory of where this season goes. I will leave it at that. But I love how the first 2 episodes throw you into the action. You get Foggy's death. You get these new characters. You're not bored because not only do you have that crazy fight scene with Bullseye and Daredevil in Josie's, you have all that action, and then boom, we got to recover from it because it's been a year later. Karen is no longer around. Matt has a new law firm. Fisk is mayor. Fisk and Matt are having this, you know, battle between their power struggle or whatever you want to call it. You know, no vigilantes, but I'm going to get you if you step out of line. There's so many things going on in the first 2 episodes, and then we're thrown into the Punisher fanboy cops and Hector Ayala's case. We're wondering whether Karen is ever going to come back. I mean, we lost Foggy. Is Karen gone too? So many things are thrown into these first 2 episodes that it really makes me wonder, what do they have planned for the rest of the season? Which I know, but I know you're wondering. And rewatching these first 2 and then thinking about what I've seen, so many things make sense now. And I do want to say, like, yes, this show, without revealing too much, is brutally violent. There are some crazy kills. It's gory. I am afraid of Wilson Fisk. I cannot believe I interviewed Vincent because he's such a different person, and how he plays this character has me in absolute awe because wow. I really love these new characters that we're getting intro to. I'm not a big fan of Heather, maybe because like in my heart I always just want Matt to end up with Karen, even though he's had so many loves, like whatever. Matt is a slut bag in this series. You know, he always seems to have a new girlfriend, but his girlfriend, also Heather, comes into play in different ways too, because she works for a certain someone. We do get introduced to Muse, the serial killer, played by, I'm not going to say it, but it's from a show where the character in this show is a weedy dude, and you would never expect, but in a way you can if you like flip the psychosis of it, but you wouldn't expect him to play Muse. So that for me was like, wow. The only thing I didn't like is I felt like there are so many storylines and so many different things going on. There was some like random episodes that I had to rewatch because they didn't make sense to me when I was watching them, if that makes sense. But now that I've seen everything, it makes sense. But at first I was like, did I really need to watch that episode? Was it a filler episode? It didn't kind of like continue what was going on in the previous one. That's what I would say about that. But overall, you know, it's bloody, it's gory, it's wild. The MCU is back. They need to make every show like this. I hope they continue to stick to their Netflix formula that they had, which they have for the most part, and they've made it better. I don't want to compare like Disney plus Marvel to Netflix, but there's a strong fan base with this show and everybody wanted it to stay the same, and they did, but they added more. I know some people have said things about the CGI. I had to go back and watch it to understand what they were talking about. I mean, I just saw a fight scene. I know like there's parts where like Matt or Daredevil is like flying in like Spider-Man almost, and it looks a little wild, but I didn't really notice that. I think I was just so taken in with the action that these little negatives that people are talking about didn't bother me so much. One thing I will add that I will throw out there that you can consider a spoiler or not, we don't get this much Daredevil. We don't get him like the amount that you think you're going to get him. We get a lot of Matt, which I think is nice because you are kind of dealing with that loss with him and going through that, you know, grief journey and like battling a day-to-day life. And when you do see Daredevil come out, it's full throttle. It's not for nothing. It's really, he had to come out. So I think this is a great season, but I do think it's a season that built us for something bigger, because the way it ends, and there's a really cool end credit scene, which I'm happy they threw in because I had so many questions, and the end credit scene at least knocked one question off for me so that I don't have to wait a whole year and panic. But I definitely think this is a season that is like setting a foundation for many things to come. And it is good. I don't have too many criticisms for it. I really did enjoy it. Oh, and there are some Easter eggs, which we will talk about in a separate video. There's some things that pop up that I'm like, wow, this is the first time they ever put that in any Marvel-related show or movie. And that was crazy to me. So there's a lot of things that you're going to start noticing the more you watch it. You know, watch it one time through and then watch it again because you're going to start noticing things. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I would give it a 9 out of 10. No show is perfect, but this one is pretty spot on. Every week I'm going to go over the episodes in detail. We're going to go through Easter eggs. I filmed a little bit of like BTS content at some movie sites, so we'll do that as well. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment, and watch those Daredevil interviews because they are pretty good and they reveal things in a way that doesn't spoil it for you.